Russian President Vladimir Putin getting a from former Fox host Tucker Carlson in Moscow, sitting down for a 2-hour interview. At one point, Putin suggests that the U.S. should negotiate with Russia over this whole war in Ukraine. Listen to this.
Wouldn't it be better to negotiate with Russia, make an agreement, already understanding the situation that is developing today, realizing that Russia will fight for its interests to the end? And realizing this, actually return to common sense, start respecting our country and its interests, and look for certain solutions. It seems to me that this is much smarter and more rational.
Joining us now, CNN senior media analyst Sarah Fisher and CNN senior international correspondent Fred Pleitgen, who is in Ukraine. Fred, I want to start with you because for 2 years, Western media outlets, including CNN, have been asking for sit-down interviews with President Putin. When you watch this, why do you think Putin and his team agreed to it?
Well, I think they agreed to it because they thought it would be beneficial for them. In fact, that's something that the Kremlin did say before this interview took place. They say that they feel that there's no benefit for them for communicating, as they put it, with, as they call us, traditional Western media. They say that they believe that Western media is biased against Russia. And, you know, some of the reactions that we've been getting this morning from the Kremlin, they seem pretty pleased with what happened there in that interview, what transpired in that interview. They say, and this is the spokesman for the Kremlin, they believe this interview will be studied in the future. They say that other media outlets are jealous of this interview. There's been some reaction from the Ukrainians as well, Phil. They say that this is little more than a justification attempt, as one presidential advisor here put it, of the genocide against Ukrainians, he said. It was quite interesting because I've actually been communicating with a journalist that I know inside Russia, and he referred to Tucker Carlson as Vladimir Putin's microphone stand and essentially said this was little more than a monologue by Vladimir Putin. Certainly, we did have long phases of Vladimir Putin essentially trying to give a lesson in history in the whole thing. I think one of the interesting things that we picked up on was when he said that he hadn't actually spoken to President Biden since before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, or the full-on invasion of Ukraine, took place, and said that he believed that President Biden's support for Ukraine was a catastrophic mistake, as Putin put it. Phil.
It was very important, Sarah, for Putin to be asked by anyone that sits down with him about detained Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich. Tucker asked him about that and if he would allow him to be released and come home to the United States. Putin said no, and then he said this.
We are willing to solve it, but there are certain terms being discussed via special services channels. I believe an agreement can be reached.
What is your reporting this morning on Evan, as all of us think about him, as his family awaits and waits for him to come home?
You can't trust those words, Poppy. I mean, the whole game here for the past year, as they've been wrongfully detaining Evan Gershkovich, is that they've been opaque. They will say one thing, they will negotiate in another way. There is no progress at this point. And so for Vladimir Putin to come out and sort of, suggest that in this Tucker Carlson interview, to me, just seems like a way to sort of dodge the one hard question in that interview. I'm actually at a journalism conference right now in Charleston, South Carolina, and the person who is managing the release for Evan Gershkovich, Paul Beckett, on behalf of the Wall Street Journal, he made this point very directly yesterday, which is that you cannot trust anything that the Russian government is saying in regards to this release, because the opaqueness is part of the strategy. The misleading words is part of the strategy. And for Tucker Carlson, by the way, to be the one Western journalist to get this type of access to Vladimir Putin suggests that Putin knows that this is going to be an interview where he can manipulate the moderator. This was a huge fail on behalf of American journalism. It was a platform for Putin.